mean, this is what makes ground advantage. Revo, even with the wide swing, trusting in his teammate McGrellin to pick up that Elim over towards the left-hand side of that compound. So, yeah, really, really well played, Alpha 7 there. Always making the best out of a bad situation is something you absolutely have to do, especially on Sandhawk, where things can go south pretty quick.
DXavier have been very controlling over this east side. First in Painan, they transition out to the west side. You can see they have this hilltop now almost fully under control. A little bit of an incursion happening from De Muerte, but that's fairly easily handled, it seems. Still, you got Foops, man, out in the off angle there, and Tresley down the hill for De Muerte. But DXavier, they're unfazed right now, moisturized, flourishing in their lane.
Yeah, I think for DXavier, probably one of the most improved teams over multiple years. They used to be not a team that I was the massive fan of, and I'm not afraid to admit that either. Used to be a lot of circle look that got them towards the end style of these tournaments. But yeah, they've just improved so much. I mean, Levi's extremely good fragger, Paragin, one of the best naders in the world. It's really, really nice to see. You know, I'm so happy to see a team stay together even throughout the bad times and just be like, let's make this work. And with Adete being moved into the team now, potentially he's going to bring something a little bit extra to the squad as well.
Well, is it going to be... Well, my dark horse pick for this group is Zeus. I feel like they've definitely got legs here, coming into this one as almost a full rookie roster, and looking to put on a show here at PMGC. If you can take down Paragin with a taste of his own medicine, the nades could find some impact here, but Darkin gives their position away a little bit, and now DXavier are into another fight. Another attempt to take this hilltop away. But that nade, ooh, just goes a little bit long on Maniac. Paragin now behind the rock has got that backup coming in through. But it's not going to connect with the nade yet again. Hang on, don't take that back. Almost immediately going down. Has to back up, has to go for some healing, but Zeus are being taken down on the off angle. Nothing really they can do about it. Those sprays looking good, but DXavier eating rounds as well as Tresley from De Muerte finds the off angle at the back.
Yeah, for Zeus, it's going to be a complete reset on this fight, though. And they know they need to get moving. Right side, they're outside of the blue, so they need to get inwards. DXavier, though, it is Lamborghini to look behind over towards De Muerte. Tresley just sending those nades over the top, looking to finish off Levi's, who makes a quick crawl out towards the south here. Yeah, very, very well done. The De Muerte to try and pick up some elims off the back of that one. But again, both teams here, Zeus as well as DXavier, unwilling to go down without a fight, so immediately get their reset on board. And you're right, for Zeus, they are an unbelievable rookie team coming into PMGC. Very, very strong. And I think the best thing about them is they're not afraid to take these engagements. They just really aren't nailing these shots over towards DXavier right now, because they didn't let that get to them, especially in PMSL EMEA. They were like, yes, we are a new team, but we're ready to tango with some of the best.
A thorn in the side. Tresley, De Muerte, able to do so much damage, draw so much attention from DXavier, and Zeus look to amputate half the roster. An excellent capitalization, a lack of fear, and it's panned out well for them. Two players from Bro up the hill. DXavier now on the back foot against Tresley. That is looking nasty for them. Hopefully, they're going to be able to push in from the east side, but all eyes on MSJ here in the middle of this map, in this hold-up compound. They have a lot of power here in the middle of this one to control the west, north, and south.
Yeah, Muru Sejong's rotation so far been very clean and sort of what I would expect from a squad like them as well. I mean, Korean squads typically in the past have had some very, very darn good rotations. Sometimes the firepower is a little bit lacking on their side, but rotations, they at least have those down to a T. And it was a nice rotate, you know, scouting out ruins and immediately moving up towards this compound. Not always the easiest to hold either, because there is potential of crashes onto at least one side of it, as it is split up by a roadside here. Team Spirit, on the other hand, struggling a little bit as Matic will go down. They pitched up over towards ruins central wise. I think it's a gamble. It's a gamble from Team Spirit. So I don't think they're going to be too unhappy with this game not going their way. They always knew that it was going to be super difficult getting out from ruins in the first place.
Hey, never count out a Team Spirit duo, right? That's something I've learned. Well, probably the hard way, as have other teams in the lobby. But RSJ, yeah, they've got them trapped. I feel like maybe this is an exception to that. But still, you never know. Could be something special. Unlikely, though, as there's the spray down onto effect. Now it's just the one player. Kitsune, last to stay alive for Team Spirit. Nice stuff. But either way, but hang on, Vampire? Where do they come from? Jumping out, maybe a little bit of respite for Kitsune, but he isn't only going to take one. Maybe GZ up into the fight here. The DPS for Kitsune. He folds back behind this cliff face, but is going to get pressured in by the blue zone. They will be able to heal up, and RSJ should just be able to take this fight in hand. Kitsune, you're done for.
Yeah, I mean, he's able to get at least one knock there, but it's a pretty tall task for him. I think for Vampire, they realized that, look, there's not much they could do over towards that western side. DRX had already done a bunch of damage towards them, so they just made the gamble on what they thought was a third party. It was actually just RSG cleaning up a weird circle. And for Major Pride, starting off the game with the 4 elims over towards Inco, they had a lot of movement to be had in terms of rotations because one of their direct competitors went out early, DRX, being spotted out there by Lord.
DRX
Twisted Minds, they're down.
Getting 3 players back up is imperative for DRX on this western side. Major Pride, they're on 8 elims now, obviously, as you said, with those 4 early. So they're having a great time now. I feel like RSJ may be overcommitted to guarding out Team Spirit. Obviously, it's great to remove that pressure, but now they've got a really tough transition ahead of them.
Yeah, RSG, I mean, from that north side, they did well, but I don't think that they capitalized too quickly on getting rid of Team Spirit. I think at that point, you need to wrap down towards the eastern side, try and clear out Bro Harame. I think at that moment where Vampire goes in, it sort of puts their situation in a little bit of turmoil, right? I think there's panic coming through from at that point in time. So there was a clear path of how to deal with Bro Harame. They were just not quick enough as DRX. Similarly, with some speedy maneuvers over towards this side of the map, but it really is the last-ditch attempt from them. Nade goes along, so as will live, but that's just for the time being as Major Pride racks up 9 elims in this match.
Ooh, yeah, very hotly contested rotate there for DRX. They try and make a bit of a mad one, but it's not going to work out. Top 4 now as Major Pride up to 9 eliminations, looking to put up the double digits on the cards. From the south side, AZ moving forwards, I think a really important move that they've made there. They're playing 3-1, a bold forward push, but they know where these threats are on this north side. They know that MSJ are holding down this northwest edge. Yeah. They can take this risk.
I mean, for AZ, it's an important position to take, and we talked about this multiple times in the past as well, John, where you have a position like this compound down towards the southeast side. It's a little bit far from the center of the circle, so you want at least an outpost to feed information back to the team. Less about getting knocks and elims, though it's nice if he's able to pick them up, but more about passing that information back to a team that is a little bit out of the picture right now. At this point in time, they can start moving up towards those compounds down over towards the western side, but they're likely not wanting to give up too much of this high ground that sits towards the south on top of these buildings to get maybe a couple of more elims. Now, the big test is here for Mirin Sejong versus Bro Harame. It's a game where they've made good rotates, but can they take this through all the way to the end?
Nice nade onto the backlines there. Slows the roll of Harame Bro. But they've already taken a little bit of a hefty hit. 2 players, well, 1 player fully down. Hoxie as well. A little bit low. Needs to get rezzed here. Major Pride will deal with Harame Bro in the meantime. There's 5 eliminations for them, but they are out. So 2 teams remain, and one of them trapped on the hilltop here. And immediately Major Pride going to move into control. This is a really great start to this tournament for Major Pride. They're up to 12 elims. They're looking for 15 with the 3 remaining on the map. But there's a nade over towards AZ, so the 4 position a little bit weakened. However, the backup is already there. They're flowing across these hillsides. Nice maneuvers coming on through from Major Pride. Element tricks. A nade over towards Jae-Suk, but he stays alive behind the rock.
Yeah, I think the difficulty right now for Mirin Sejong is just utility. With the amount of elims that Major Pride's been able to pick up, their utility is looking very strong. Final looking for potentially a nade over towards Elementrix. They know his position. He's being pushed by the blue now. We'll have to sit in an awkward spot. Starts to crouch upwards. Have they spotted this? I don't think so.
Elementrix's left flank covered by his team, but the right flank not so happy. Major Pride lose a forward push player. They have managed to get their other player at the back lines back up, but they'll need to go on through and save this one from going down. Becca low. Evo Station will not be tagged by that nade, though. and that is going to give them a little bit more confidence on that flank. However, they've trapped themselves. They've moved up, and all of a sudden, it's topsy-turvy. MSJ have a real chance here. Mirin Sejong need that 4-point to work, but it just doesn't go their way. Final blocked by his teammate there on the shotgun shells, and it will be the rally over the top for Major Pride. Jae-suk cannot handle the heat, and it's Major Pride to kick us off with the first chicken dinner.
I mean, for Major Pride, very well played. I mean, a good movement up towards that northern side to challenge versus Mirin Sejong, especially the circle moved away from. You got to give them credit with the fact that they've basically not had to move too much this game in terms of just moving slightly upwards. And that compound they held for such a long time wasn't in a lot of people's sights until that circle just kept heading down towards that southeast side, John. But yeah, for Mirin Sejong, they get a few unlucky grenades. I actually think that could have completely gone in the opposite direction if Finals nade had done a little bit more damage. It was perfectly cooked, but the angle just wasn't quite right there. And I think at that moment they realized that they're running on empty. They try and send forward, and Jae-suk tries to play this backline position, but he's basically of no help. There was so much cover on that eastern side. But very, very well played to Mirin Sejong in terms of rotations, and very well played to Major Pride just in terms of that firepower.
Yeah, I really liked some of the maneuvers that were happening in that game. I think we're in for a treat here for Group Yellow. I'm a particular fan of the DX Xavier position over in Painan as well. But that is going to close down our first entry to the jungle as we're heading back on over to the desk to break it down and set us up for the next one.
Well, the unexpected start is one way I'll talk about this match. Major Pride coming out with the first chicken dinner here of Group Yellow in the first day of the PUBG Mobile Global Championships League stage. Max, man, I gotta throw it straight to you. This, to me, was so damn unexpected because in CSA, Major Pride were a very big letdown when it came to the league stage. They came through 5th place in the finals, but for them to pull off this many eliminations as well here in match 1, day 1, that I think is a testament to how much they've been really focusing and improving in the offstage.
Man, Becca also got 8 eliminations here. I mean, Jason, you were talking about it during the game too. Normally, they are a very big fan of these splits late game that kind of caused their demise at the end. Man, they stuck together so well. And of course, they had a little bit of circle luck, but they were just not overstepping their position whatsoever. They were lasering down teams that were trying to get relatively close to their spot. And I talked about it with you, Hodrix, at the end there too. The way they swarmed all the individual players of MSJ one by one without taking too big a risk really is what put the nail in the coffin of this game. So, man, I'm sold. Like, Major Pride, more of this, please. Let's go.
Let's go. Take advantage of it. It's Sandhawk. I mean, Sandhawk, you never know what's going to happen. And if you get that opportunity, you got to take it. And they did. I mean, they land there on the south side near Camp Charlie. The zone goes in their direction, and they just hold off the fire. I mean, 8 eliminations from Becca off the rip. You couldn't ask for a better start here, Jason.
And for a team, I mean, we were watching and I was saying like, oh, Major Pride, don't tell me they're just doing the play for late game, play passive the whole time. Then I looked at their limbs and they're sitting there on like 8 limbs at the time. And I'm like,
but how?
What the hell? Like, is this a completely different team? Like, this team has completely changed from what we saw in CSA. And I'm not going to say it's necessarily fully changed, but this is not the Major Pride that we saw when it came to the league stage of CSA, and you have to give them credit. Like, we know how much they love playing on the high ground, Max, especially with Becca there. They use that time and time again when it came to the PMSL, and to see it work out for them here is a very assuring sight. But if you were to say to me, you know, when we woke up today, hey Jason, first match, you're gonna have DRX, Major Pride, Harame, and Mirin Sejong as our top 4, I would have said shut up. Like, there's no way. This is I think such an interesting start to this group. And now I know it is Sandhawk, I will say, but man, I'm hyped for what Group Yellow has to offer.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that underdog teams have performed in the first game, when we call it the group of death, because you got your Alpha 7s, you got your Vampires, all those big squad, right? It is already setting up a really good...
Your Incos, who died right away.
I was just about to say, but actually, talking about Major Pride, I don't remember, which team did they take that down first? Which squad was it? I don't know.
I just saw it happen, and a tear shed so slow. Yeah. A tear just went down so slow whenever I saw Eco on the push, of course, towards Major Pride. I mean, let's be real. If they would have won that fight, maybe they win the game. You know what I'm saying?
It was in the, like, game-winning area, so, like, definitely it could have, but it didn't. What do you have to say about it? No, okay, no.
But it didn't.
Yeah, it was tough.
But let's maybe go into this, Max, as you point out while we're watching. car usage late game on Sandhawk, Mirren Sejong. You wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, it's rare. Normally you see a lot of people when you get towards the late section of the mid game saying, okay, let's just give up on the cars. We're going to do the rest by foot. But like Mira and Sejong, without cars, they don't make it up that hill. They can't contest Harame Bro in the way they did at the late game without cars. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think they even took a knocked player, put him into the car, rolled him uphill, and then rezzed him. I'm not sure if I imagined that, but if that was the case, that was a great usage of the car to speed up that entire rotation. So, man, cars can be clutch in these scenarios. So, good usage from MSJ.
Looking at the rest of the standings here, Hot Jukes, Inko going to be 16th with 0 points, BTR with 0 points. Team Spirit, I mean, we saw them holding such an awkward position where they were on the low ground compared to Reagan's Gaming, and then they really didn't have any bouncing off point from there.
Going into Ruins,
Yeah,
I think that Jukes, going in Ruins, it's great to hold it off as like the defensive position when you have to leave into a team that's playing the high ground like RSG. It's always going to be a tough time, man.
Yeah, that's why we saw Amir Sejong leave Ruins, right? I mean, as soon as they realized the zone was going to go ahead and just, southern up just a little bit more, they took off from it, and then Team Spirit took it. Yeah, I mean, Ruins is great if the zone does land there, but if it strays away from it, trying to get out of there is so difficult, like you mentioned, and that's why we saw them struggle. One thing, though, Jason, I got to look at, though, is Twisted Minds, right? They had that beautiful botate, and they got to a good position, but they weren't really able to capitalize off it, right?
Yeah, they were able to avoid a lot of the fights on that Northwest Island. Like we saw with BTR, they were holding back Vampire Esports, or were looking to see if they wanted to gatekeep them. They avoid everything, but they didn't really get much off of that after the decent position that they were able to actually get to. So a little bit disappointing in terms of like how the rotation ended with their result, but I feel like, at least for me, Max, it's a good sign that they're being very aware about where the clear and smooth rotational paths are going to be.
Yeah, with their drop and how the circle was going, I think that it's a good option. Unfortunately, when you botate, there's always going to be one issue, which is lack of information. So that's something you really can't negate when you're doing a botation. So it was tough, didn't quite work out, but it shows that they are adapting to the lobby. Though, man, talking about Becca again, we talked about their position in this game, right, Hot Jukes? But playing the rooftop, as long as Becca actually did, not only enabled him to set up his team for success to get stronger positions, but it enabled him to like just pop off, get 8 eliminations, over 1,000 damage. Rooftops in the late game, if you don't have off angles that can threaten your spot, are so impactful. So good on Becca to use that spot as long as he actually could.
Dude, I mean, they played that perfectly. I mean, let's be real. I mean, if you're a name that's, not really expected to perform, like in that first place position, you got to be able to pull something out special, and they did. So beautiful game from Mirren Sejong.
I also wanted to give credit to Harame Bro, because we saw them get aggressive against Reagan's Gaming after their like kind of skirmish with Team Spirit towards Ruins, and I kind of respect that as well, because Harame Bro didn't qualify from your normal PMSL SCA, right? They're not necessarily playing against the best teams of the region, yet they're playing like they have the confidence of the best team from the region, making very smart strategic plays. So I really had to give him a shout out there, Max, because you have to respect when teams go for plays like that, because it was probably the right move to make in that situation.
I don't know, Jason, if I would say confidence, more like very opportunistic. They're like, you're weakened, 3 eliminations, maybe we push. Of course, all the teams are trying to leave the Ruins area, and especially the southern hill area of Ruins. You see teams are wounded, you see the elimination feed light up, you're going to send it to clear that entire high ground position. It was a very, very good play, but it's not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm on the Harame Bro hype train. I need to a bit more, but it's a good little start. It's a good little avant-bouche, It's great. Yeah.
Sorry, can you say that in English?
No.
No. What about BTR, the Bigatron Knights, Hot Jukes? We saw them, they were kind of gatekeeping Vampire a little bit, but they did make the smart macro play to transition towards Trifecta and kind of like gain a lot of information there, and also, more importantly, more rotational paths for them to go through.
I mean, I think that was the best option they had. I mean, they land on that, on that northeastern island. When it comes to Sandhawk, they're just hoping the zone goes there, right? If the zone goes to that island, they're going to have a monster game. If it doesn't, they're going to just try to put up any kind of points they did. And they did. So, I mean, they got 3 more Aaron Gales coming up next. I think they're just going to shake it off and just get back to work.
Okay. Shake it off. Maybe like Alpha 7, Max, we saw them go in a head-to-head clash against Aura Esports, which I didn't expect to see any sort of fight like that happening. They did lose, I believe, 2 off the back of that one. Alpha 7, not to say that Hot Jukes started to curse some teams, but, it's not looking too good so far.
It's not me. I'll take it. Nobody's blaming me yet. That's a win. McGrellin able to clutch, actually, with a DBS, able to keep the team alive a little bit longer, but with how the rotation was going, they were trying to go for a wide wrap, which I would say Hodrix is a respectable play when you only have 2 players trying to just survive at that point. Unfortunately, they send it right into Major Pride, which, as we saw, had a game-winning position. So if there was no one there, maybe it goes out their way. But as we saw, a 2-man crash onto Major Pride is just not going to work out. But it's the first game. It's a Sanhok 2. We know they're really good when it comes to Miramar and Erangel. So let them cook. They'll be good. Yeah.
Young Taisho.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
what's your expectations?
All the way over there near Lamb Capine. Yeah.
Going into Erangel coming up next, as we have back-to-back Erangels, Hot Jukes. What's your kind of expectations here for these teams and how it potentially could play out?
Well, I think we're going to see something totally different here in Erangel. I mean, Sanhok is one of those maps where if you get circle, you got to capitalize on it. Erangel is that like perfect chess map, you know, where it really just proves those mistakes. One little tiny mistake just snowballs there. So I'm looking to see.
I think we're having some
where these circles are going to go. Are we going to get some military zones?
Max,
how are these teams going to react? And we're just showing like the speed is crazy.
Or maybe I lagged out that time.
I got him at the end now.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. You know what I want? You want me to tell you what's going to be different between Sanhok and Erangel, Jason? You want me to tell you?
Yes.
The map. No, okay. No, seriously, it's going to be a longer game, so I think we're going to be seeing potentially more wide wraps here from some squads, because of course Sanhok it's a lot quicker when it gets down to it. So here's really where I expect our big names, Jason, to really stand out the most, like your Vampires, your Alpha 7s, all of that. I think this is the time they are going to shine as much as possible. So yeah, Erangel, it's your trial and tested map. It's the true OG map, okay, that everyone knows like the back of their hand. So we're going to get back to a sense of like normality very soon, Jason. So like, trust, it's going to work out.
And I think, you know, obviously we have to have a little caveat when it comes to Sanhok, and again, seeing like these 4 teams being our top 4. Mir and Sejong, I mean, they got themselves in a good position, but let's be honest, the zone did shift to them like time and time again. Like they really didn't have to move. They had 2 compounds, the 2-2 split, and they regrouped on the compound that'd be more favorable in their zone. Obviously just 1 match done, but I want to see how they're gonna have to play from a really bad position to get back into these zones, because that's, I think, gonna be the real test of these teams. If a lot of teams are gonna start trying to play center, if you're slow in the rotate, you have to then fight your way from the outside in.
They did have a little bit of circle luck here, Jason. I definitely have to agree. But you're making your luck when you have these central 2-2 splits. You just regroup on the team that has the better position, which every time, I think they did that twice this game where they had 2-2 splits. They had 2 players in Ruins, 2 players in the compound southwest of Ruins, regroup on the southern western compound, then do another split on the next circle and regroup on the compound that we saw allow them to make it to the top 3 scenario of this Sanhok game. So if you have 2-2 splits and you end up having 1 team in the circle, you're making your own luck here. And that's why MSJ is looking so good, in my opinion, because they are able to adapt on so many different fronts. They're able to play wide rotates. They're able to play center, edge. They can play aggressive. They can play passive. Like, really, I think this is possibly going to be one of the biggest surprises of this group. Hopefully I don't curse them for the rest of this group for Group Yellow. But really, they have showed to me true potential back in their home region. So I just hope it's going to work out for the rest of this international tournament.
Hodrix, I know you did some prep coming into this about like agreed upon drop locations. Do you want to kind of walk us through where we expect teams to be dropping and any potential clashes that could happen?
For sure. I mean, there's so many different areas. I mean, teams are going to have their backup locations, all kinds of different stuff. But, you know, I'm going to be looking towards that crates area. You got Vampire looking to possibly drop there, and I want to see how they play it out. And we're going to find out right now.
Yeah, let's head on back to our casters with John on a blank to take us into match 2.
We are headed into the first of many Erangels, I'm sure, still to come. What a great way to kick things off for Major Pride back on Sanhok, but now we're looking to the future once more as we head in for match number 2 here for Group Yellow.
Match number 2 coming at you. We got Erangel, and then more Erangel for you. So we got a triple billing coming very shortly, but we're going to start things off nice and calm. The circle over towards that western side. We do have teams dropping out very early down towards Sosnov, because you've got 3 teams actually down towards this area. The moment Bro Harame to Muerte, as well as Loops. Not a huge amount of space here, John, actually, for these teams to play in. It's a bit awkward, I would say, a lot of times. Yeah, 2 teams is okay. I mean, you get Nova Up Noya, you've got military base on C block, but then one team has to sort of play that awkward location around the Eastern Bridge, which doesn't have a massive amount of loot, and a lot of times you're worried about teams like De Muerte currently taking shots over towards you with the high ground that is offered. It depends how quickly Duarte decide to loot up over at Noya, though, as that is where the majority of the loot will be had. For Loops, though, this is more a case of taking vehicles off the hands of Duarte and potentially getting up towards that eastern side, which has worked out really well. They control a huge amount of space now.
Yeah, it looks like Duarte going to be a little bit further south, so no conflict there. Inco in the middle of the map. You see them dropping. Worried about their potential progression into this one, but they hop into the monster truck and no one too close. DX Xavier a little bit further south near a Pachinki, but won't be able to get sight lines early enough to stop this rotation. And it is all about the vehicle grabs on these early drops with this sort of a playing path, right? You do need to be getting on board very, very quickly, getting on the road as fast as you can, because it's going to be very condensed for a while. The circle, pretty chill right now, which means that no real pressure on that front, but you do not want to stay too close to everyone else for too long.
So on our screens right now, we've got Mirror and J Song. Honestly, very, very good team. I was very, very happy with how they played out that last game. I mean, in terms of the rotations, it felt very comfortable to them. Albeit the fact of the matter is that they had a lot of space to play on that northern side. As we saw, John, a lot of teams took that eastern crossing, which leads me to believe that this is somewhat of a careful lobby, which makes sense to me. You don't really want to get yourself stuck into too many difficult scenarios. And it comes with qualifications as well, right? Only 3 spots towards that top side for the guaranteed. You don't want to be making too many mistakes. You'd rather get those consistent points on board. When we have qualification spots that drop down towards 7th place, sometimes it's a little bit more acceptable to make those gambles, which is why the team spirit play felt a little bit weird, though I think they realized more than anything they didn't have a lot of time to make those rotates, so they send over towards Ruins. But I'm glad they did that. I'm actually glad they did that. I think it's one of the things that Team Spirit struggles with the most a lot of times. It's just making clear-cut decisions, right? Or it's a case of, oh, do we go here? Do we go there?
Exactly the gold that they were looking for, but they'll take it. They'll take the 1 point. It's better than Inco, which is,
yeah. That is a that was a crashing ship, honestly, right there. And the captain was told multiple times to turn the ship 15 degrees to the left.
That's to the port.
To the port, and he refused.
Yeah. It's like, actually,
Leeward,
kind of like starboard right now.
yeah. Well, to the left would be yeah,
Port side.
Port side.
Port side, starboard. Portside named such because, in general, ships always docked on their left side, so the port would always be on the left. No clue why it's called starboard, though. So,
yeah, then it gets complicated with and all this stuff as well. Where I honestly just stick to port and starboard. I mean, I guess if they really need to know the lands on the left-hand side, it makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to criticize. I'm sure the navies know what they're doing. You know, the various navies around the world.
The boat lingo does go crazy because they are just like, there's a lot of things in the real world for directions, but we're going to have our own little cool club.
To be fair, when you're at sea, there's just no reference point, so direction is very hard.
It's like being in space.
It's exactly like that. It's the same thing.
It's the space of the land.
It's the space of land. That's right. That's what I've always said. And
we have it's unexplored. I think it's 98.7% unexplored. Is that the actual statistic?
That's pretty spooky.
Yeah. How much sea is unexplored?
Probably
and then I'll get back to the game.
Of it. Yeah. We've got to figure this out.
Over 80%.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I reckon more percentage of space hasn't been explored though. So
some people say 95. I'm pretty sure it's around about 98% though. I think that's the actual statistic.
I've explored it.
I bet you have. You're a dolphin.
Yeah, that's me.
You're the dolphin of the land.
I'm the dolphin of the land. And so we're going to dive back on into this match. Tails are flipping. Twisted Minds on board on the west side. Sorry, on the port side. You just have to
experience the terror of the ocean really quickly. It is Halloween after all.
It's Lovecraftian.
Yeah. Oh, we could do so much with that, but we're not because we're at PMGC, so we got to talk about these teams. I think Major Pride's definitely the big surprise. for us here, 25 points. They're a strong team, though. They are a strong team. I do like all the players on that squad. Major Pride, not what it once was in terms of the players there. It has gone through a lot of iterations, and a fair few of these players were sort of unknowns for us maybe 2 years ago. But now they have certainly made a name for themselves here going into PMGC, which is very, very nice to see. And it's always sparks confidence, right? When a team tries to crash into you and you just absolutely obliterate them and go from there. Definitely gave Major Pride that little bit of extra oomph going in towards that final zone. They're super happy with it as well. You can see how passionate the players are to be here at PMGC.
As they should be. It's a bit of an honor to be able to make it all the way here, right? So that has to come with a little bit of excitement. BTR trying to get the spray downs, but just spiking a little bit, not really doing too much damage there. Alpha 7 kind of encircling them right now with Mafioso maybe a little bit vulnerable. I imagine that this is going to be a regroup. They're currently 3-1, and they need to get Mafioso extracted from the south side of Yasnai. He's in the open fields right now, so a little bit of danger coming on through there from Horror on the north side, but they're good enough. They'll know what they're doing. They'll get away.
Yeah. So for Alpha 7, I'm going to make this point, but you got to understand first, I know they are a good team. I know they did fantastically well in their own region. But
I'm worried. What are you going to say?
I'm just saying that this is the tournament where they do need to prove themselves, because I think for PMWC it was great, and I was so happy for them. I mean, they were so emotional during that event, and it got me a little bit emotional as well, as we've all followed them for such a long time. But this is a case now where you go into PMGC, you don't want to let the foot off the gas now. You just keep things going. It must have been a real relief and a weight off the shoulders, but there still is that pressure there to come out on top here at PMGC, which has been the most prestigious event throughout the entirety of PUBG Mobile's history. And we've seen multiple teams in the past over various different esports. You know, you get that win and then suddenly fall off. I mean, S2G is actually a great example of that here in PUBG Mobile, because they fell off the radar as soon as they were able to take it home for Turkey. Kind of weren't able to do anything after that, even though I think when they did win PUBG Mobile, and I hope you'd agree with me, John, here, but I think that they were definitely the best team in the world then.
Yeah, I mean, they took that title, right, and went back in towards the next year to defend their title in Turkey itself, and just
crumbled.
Really did not. Yeah, they absolutely did crumble on their home ground, which was unfortunate, but that is how it happens, right? You cannot let up, and that's playing back into your point. I suppose it makes sense, because that's the point you're making, right? For Alpha 7. See if they can keep things going. Vampire, maybe with a cut across DXavier, but instead they slice on through this hold. DXavier gets through, and Vampire, not a word to say about it.
Yeah, difficult cross actually for DXavier a lot of times across this field, so you want to go as quickly as possible. Paragin takes a couple of tags, and Major Pride going completely the opposite direction to them as Evo Station sends through. Definitely getting some scouting on board. I mean, they have a fairly secure position up towards Potato Hill, so they can play around that very nicely. It is also nice because if you are one of those folks that only tunes in for PMGC every year, welcome to the greatest tournament of PUBG Mobile in the world. But also, we had a change towards our league system throughout the entirety of the year. We now go through PMSLs, so a lot of our PMPLs have been cut now. In fact, completely cut. And we only have PMSLs, which means slots are more limited. So you're only seeing right now the best players, and it has really changed the performance in every single region. Every single region has been so close, so action packed. So this should be, if I am not mistaken, probably the most competitive PMGC of all time. Before, we used to get some teams being able to slip in towards PMGC, and although they definitely earned that spot, they were maybe not the right team to be at PMGC at that time. This time around, I think everyone who's made it to each individual group here absolutely deserves that spot, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to be up towards those top three.
It's definitely a hotly contested spot. Group Yellow, a real tough place to try and make your mark as well. It's only the top three that get that direct invite to London. Sure, it's a short commute for me, but for these teams, it has been a long journey. We'll see if they can make that final step. over the course of the next few days. Circle shifts central to Potato Hill. Xavier with a nice little hold there. Paragin out on a wide east flank. I wouldn't be too surprised to see him go back and rejoin with his team at this stage to try and hold the north side of Potato Hill. Vampire going to play on the east side of Pachinki Fields, which will hold down the west rotations for a lot of this map. Will be very difficult to make a maneuver on that west side. So expect the east side to be a little bit more free-flowing, but a little bit more flowing with blood as well.
No Fear picks himself up first blood in this game. Oh, towards Mir and Sejong. Unfortunate for them to lose a player so early. They are very much out in the open, and the moment Hora has incredible sightlines over towards them. I think Mir and Sejong is in a real tough spot, actually. And it's difficult to figure out where to go. It is also interesting that so many of our teams are over towards the eastern side of the map, particularly because this was such a western-leaning plane. And I think a lot of teams, again, you take that into account. You're getting more smart teams here. All of this regional bias going into this one in terms of who's going to make it through. Do we get our best teams over towards each individual group? And all these best teams understand that if you get a western-leaning plane path, you're likely going to have a more free side of the eastern side of the map. But it's working to the disadvantage of these squads making this assumption, because everyone's made the same kind of maneuver here. So it's now extremely packed over towards the season side. Teams like Vampire, who have a ton of veteran experience in these global tournaments, they just sat pretty on the western side.
I mean, there is that element, right, of Pachinki being on the west side of the circle. The open fields that surround it, really difficult to navigate. So moving out to the east side, potentially just rotationally, a more opportune choice, right? But as soon as everybody makes that choice, no matter what it is, it's going to be the wrong choice in the end if half the lobby has also made the same decision, which sometimes just happens. Moving south from apartments, Zeus are trying to break up into the hills towards Potato Hill. DRX out to their southwest side. You can see they have seemingly scouted that. They'll know those vehicles are moving. DRX regrouping, but with that pickoff that they got onto the outpost onto Soez, DRX now cut down to 3. So the north side for Zeus looking pretty chill. Could potentially be a little bit of trouble caused by MSJ, by potentially Ora as well if they rotate out this way. But the east side, as it was always to be, is going to start to heat up now with Harame Bro, Loops, also Duerte rolling up into the fight. Loops bear the brunt of the first wave of the engagement here, but there's still plenty more to go. The dinner's still on the table as Duerte look to eat.
Loops down. Unbelievable stuff, actually. I mean, Duerte staying alive for the time being, should be able to get their squad mates back up, but this is a horrendous position to be in. The nades are going to start flowing through over towards them. Nades on that bottom step will throw one out the window, clears up one of the players over on Loops, gives them a